Now, I am going to court. Now, I could say a specific person, but I'm just going to start right into this. I'm going to talk about Dr. Fate. Now, the reason why I will not actually get into Dr. Fate as a character is simply because there has been multiple people who have actually taken this title. Predominantly it's been men, but there have been a few female Dr. Fates. Now what I mean by that is that I would say I can't even remember all the names of them. You ask me to name every single Dr. Fate, I'll admit, I am a very knowledgeable person in comics, but even then, my intelligence and knowledge, it gets stretched so far beyond belief that I even sometimes forget facts. I mean, it's sad. It really is, because I want to kind of memorize all this stuff, but you know, that's the way life is, and that is the way, you know, no pun intended, you know, that's the way fate is. Sometimes, you know, we remember stuff, sometimes we don't. But there have been at least 6 to 9 people that have taken pretty much the title of Dr. Fate, or at least taken up the mantle. Now, they've all worn this helmet, and this helmet is a very powerful arcane artifact. Now, what this helmet does is that this helmet is basically a symbol and an arcane artifact passed on by the Order, by pretty much, you know, the Council of Order and Chaos. Now, the Council of Order and Chaos are these omnipotent beings that have existed for thousands of generations. They were a council created presumably by God or by the gods, you know, all of the gods throughout religion and etc., and that basically they are an embryonic balance. They're like a council that balances out the world. Because when there is too much good in the world, then anarchy reigns. If there is too much chaos, then it's twice as worse. So Dr. Fate is pretty much an agent of that. He is basically there to make sure that the balance of good and evil is, you know, fairly just. Now, Dr. Fate does what he can to kind of tip the scales and, like, you know, orders balance, which the council kind of frowns upon him for that because they want him to be very neutral. But Dr. Fate has told the council more than once, or any of the multiple Dr. Fates, or people that have taken the identity, have basically said, you know, look, I get that order and chaos have to be balanced out, but, you know, it's not fair if somebody's, you know, burning in a car that I just have to stand there and let them die. So Dr. Fate, or any of the people that have taken up the mantle, there's that sense of morality that I think we all kind of deal with from day to day. You know, do we help someone? Do we not help someone? You know, do we want to help them, but yet we feel that it's an overwhelming task, and then when that person dies, we feel guilty? You know, all these like moral questions are a very rich character trait for the actual character of Dr. Fate. Because, you know, it's kind of the classic damned if you do, damned if you don't theorem. But getting into the actual character itself, you know, Dr. Fate, whoever has taken up the mantle, they become a very powerful, arcanic, you know, person. They're like probably the most powerful arcane person in the world. They can wield spells, they can do like interdimensional travel. They can basically wipe out entire armies. Dr. Fate has been featured in Batman Brave and the Bold, Justice League. He's been in Smallville, which you can tell by this right picture here. But, you know, Dr. Fate is a character that quite a few people know, but yet they don't know much about. They just know that, you know, he's got the helmet, he wields spells. But this helmet not only does that, but it keeps a direct contacted link with the Council of Order and Chaos. And this helmet is so powerful, the resonance from it is so powerful, that it could literally drive a person insane. That they can't even hear their own thoughts. So they got to concentrate to keep, you know, the helmet from basically, you know, shall we say, ripping their brain apart. So the helmet's kind of a double-edged sword. On one hand, it makes you the most powerful arcanic person in the world. You know, you can wield spells with just a thought. But on the other hand, it has a very high chance of driving you insane and just warping your mind to the point that you become hallucinogenic and delusional. And the helmet also gives, which is why the character is called Dr. Fate, it basically can show multiple timelines, like almost like precognition of the future of what is going to take place, you know, years from now, or like a certain person, kind of like, you know, in the Dead Zone TV series to a certain extent. And Dr. Fate has fought Trigon, brother in the Cult of Blood. Dr. Fate is a member of the DC supernatural mystic group, the Sentinels of Magic, alongside the Phantom Stranger, Deadman, Zatanna, Faust, Felix Faust's son, Garth, also known as Tempest, the very first Aqualad, and many, many others that are either mystic or supernatural based in the DC universe. So Dr. Fate, believe it or not, the original, the Golden Age Dr. Fate, was one of the founding members of the Justice Society of America, the JSA. So Dr. Fate, at least, you know, in terms of the helmet, the character, etc., has a very deep, rich history in kind of, shall we say, the beginnings of you know, the DC Comics universe. And many, many people have actually taken up the mantle. I think there's been like 2 or 3 women that have taken up the mantle, and that, but like I said, the vast majority has always been men, and it's always been kind of within the same like lineage or family. I've kind of, or at least from what I've noticed. And I think it's either the Nelson or I think it's pronounced the Nelson family. I'm not quite sure. You guys, when I do these, I kind of prefer that you guys do the research, because, you know, I would have to be jotting down billions of notes, and I'm sorry, unlike, you know, my buddy Ian, I can't do that. It's not within me. It's not purpose laziness, it's just the way I choose to be. But I think I've given you guys enough information as to who Dr. Fate is and why this character is very cool, and it's a character that quite a few people have requested that I at least, you know, mention or talk about. So there you go, guys. I talked about Dr. Fate, so scratch another one off the list. And from here, it's going to be a few like random ones that people have asked me to talk about. Hey guys, this is an afterthoughts on the Dr. Fate video here. I actually researched a couple of new facts that I thought that I would add at the end of this video. Number 1, whoever wears the helmet of fate is given the powers of Nabu, who is the god who grants these powers. He basically takes over your body, and your soul is transported into the helmet of fate. And it seems predominantly that the Nelson family, Kent Nelson's lineage, and there's maybe been 1 or 2 people that have not been in his lineage that have taken up the helmet of fate. Like I said, I mention these characters, I talk about them, I give a good selling point, but I don't really do like thorough research like the monster does. But anyway, guys, look forward to the next video, because I'm going to be talking about 2 members of DC Comics' Birds of Prey. And I think you're going to like... I also have an intro that I think you guys may like as well, so stay tuned.